Namaste. Hello, Journey of Discovery people, and thank you for joining me on episode 5, where I discuss my experiences and my ideas behind my recent exploration into the 10-day silent Vipassana meditation. All right, so today I'm going to touch on my experiences and my understanding of what I learned at this 10-day Vipassana silent meditation course. And I'm going to touch on 3 main things. 1, the aspects of what I encountered. All right, the steps involved in what happened physically in terms of what I experienced and what we were expected to do over the 10 days. 2, I'm going to touch on the technique and how I understood it and how I believe it can help us to better understand ourselves and to train our mind. And 3, I'll touch on the overall, what's the idea? Not philosophy, but the overall importance, I suppose is what I want to say, the overall importance of how this technique and practice can help us, can help you to really further develop yourself. We arrived, we had just a few hours, well, I personally just had a few hours to meet a few of the other attendees, get to know them a little bit and find out the reasons for wanting to attend the course. But then they just threw us straight into it. Gave us an overall orientation about what to expect, about what was expected of us, and then we began with the meditations. And every day we're expected to do meditation as often as possible, upwards of 11 hours a day. When you're not meditating, we can spend time in our room, or we're walking around or enjoying lunch times or meal times. And basically every single day they would incorporate a small technique and they would add on to that technique, developing our ability to use this technique, and in doing so recognize how powerful our mind is, and also to recognize how distracted we are with our thinking and how we don't actually control our thoughts. How, if anything, we're slave to our thinking because our mind just goes off on a tangent. Random thoughts and ideas kind of floating away in our mind, taking us off, and our awareness going with it before we recognize, wait a minute, I'm not actually doing what I should be doing, and bringing ourselves back to the meditation. When we weren't meditating in the group hall, we were asked, or at least offered, the opportunity to go to our rooms to meditate. But invariably, when you're in a room situation, there's no one watching you. While I did meditate most of the time, I have to admit, there were times where I just decided to sleep because I was tired, or because it was just felt like so much work to have to focus all the time. Or distract myself somehow, try to, but that was difficult to do. Because upon beginning the course, they ask you to hand in any distracting devices, mobile phones, iPads, MP3 players, as well as books that you might have with you, or even writing utensils. So you can't write anything down, you can't distract yourself with drawing, and what ends up happening is you sit with yourself. You and your thinking, and you have no choice but just to be with you, your naked self, not clothed by distraction of devices or material things. So fortunately, I was lucky enough to have a room with a view. And the rooms were known as cells, well, for specific and appropriate reasons, because there was nothing in them except a bed and a cupboard where you could place your clothes. And when I wasn't meditating in the group hall or meditating in my room, we also had an opportunity, or given an opportunity, to walk around the grounds. But not just walk around to distract ourselves by exercising, because you weren't around to run, just walk. But to be aware of our walking and to be present in the moment, to appreciate the beauty of what we're experiencing. And the other difficulty that I have, because I handed in all of these devices and I don't carry a watch, I had no idea what the time was. And therefore, I had no idea when I was supposed to do what. And if I fell asleep in the process of waiting for another schedule to come past, or one of the scheduled activities to take place, I had no idea if the bell, if it was happening or not. And that's why there was a gong. I would strike a gong whenever it was time for us to do the next activity as listed on our schedule. And that was the only way I could really tell time. Otherwise, time was irrelevant to me. And it felt so quick at times, or it felt like it took so long at times when I wasn't meditating, when I was sitting there waiting. And that was the aspect of what took place, what kind of things happened when I arrived and what was expected of us to do. In the next part, I'm going to discuss the techniques involved and why we had to do them. Okay, so let's discuss part 2 about what I learned and experienced at the Vipassana meditation course. And that was, I'm going to touch on the technique involved. And in essence, what they taught us to do was simply, while we're sitting down, is to place our awareness on the tip of our nose and focus on the sensations that we can feel on the tip of our nose. And try to focus on only that and only that. And invariably you'll find that your mind kind of wanders and you get carried away by a thought. And sometimes in the beginning, specifically, it may have been from 1 minute upwards of 5 minutes that I was carried away with this thought before I realized that, wait a minute, I'm not actually doing what I'm supposed to be focusing on. And you've got to bring yourself back and continue to focus on the sensations. And as the days progressed, they kind of added on techniques to this meditation practice. Eventually, you're kind of focusing on the sensations all around the nose. And then eventually moving towards bringing your awareness towards feeling sensations throughout your entire body, kind of scanning your body part by part and trying to sense and feel all the sensations that you can feel from itchiness on that part of the body. And stick with the part that you're focused on at that time. Don't jump to wherever you feel things, just one part at a time. So like I was mentioning, itchiness that you might feel, the sensation of the clothes in your skin, the temperature in the room, or any sensations of vibration or warmth, or whatever the case is. And that was, in essence, what we had to really focus on. But the crux of it, the real trick of it, was to do so objectively, to simply be aware, to observe objectively without any judgment, and to do so without any reaction. Because one of the other sensations one may experience is pain. Because sitting in a position such as a meditation posture for a period of an hour, there's no doubt you're going to start experiencing pain. I experienced pain in my midsection, mid-back, pain in my knees and my hips, and even in my butt and ankles at some points, and pain that became excruciating. But the trick was to observe it, to observe the sensations regardless of what they are, but not to react, to simply observe, and to remain balanced. And as they put it, to remain equanimous, to find the perfect equanimity. And the perfect balance and the perfect equanimity is simply to observe, to not react. And the purpose for this, as we learned through the daily discourses that we got, every evening they kind of gave us a little bit of a theoretical discussion. We didn't get to talk, of course, but we got to listen. Where they taught us that there are two main reasons or causes for the experiences that cause misery and suffering in our lives. And if you've watched my previous video on change, you'll understand this, because there's only one consistent in life, impermanence, the guarantee that things are going to change. And they helped us to understand that the two causes of this suffering is, one, our desire or our need to cling to things, our cravings. When we crave things, when we need things, when we cling to them because we feel like we would be less than if we don't have them in our lives, we suffer. We create an attachment to these things. So the first thing is attachments. When we attach to things that we think we need, the minute we lose them, the minute they leave our lives, because invariably that's going to happen. The one consistent thing in life is change and impermanence. When we lose these things that we are attached to, we suffer. That's the one thing, attachments. And the second thing is aversions. The moment we react with aversion to something because we don't like it, because it causes maybe physical pain, or it even causes emotional pain and discomfort. We react with pain, we react with aversion. We push it away, we don't want it. The moment we react to that thing with an emotional reaction of aversion or a physical reaction of aversion, we cause suffering. We cannot maintain balance. And through this practice of simply observing, we learn that we should simply observe all things, observe them without reacting, either as a result of one, attachments, or two, aversions to these things. And that was in essence the technique. So as I already touched on, I learned how important it is to be aware of oneself, to be aware of the sensations within ourselves. The more aware we are, the more we're able to observe without reacting, the better placed we are to recognize those moments where in the past we may have reacted as a result of an attachment to something or as a result of an aversion to something. The more we can maintain balance, the more we can maintain equanimity, the more we choose not to react, the more we can be at peace. We can be calm with any scenario that we encounter. And I'll give you the example of how this manifested, this understanding occurred from an experiential perspective. Because the one thing I love about the Course is, besides teaching us and helping us to understand this intellectually, they give us an exercise to help us understand it experientially, so we can have that overall holistic understanding. Because it's all good and all to understand something theoretically, go to university and understand it theoretically, but if you haven't applied it in physical existence, in experiential life, you haven't become truly self-realized. And that's what I realized there. When I was sitting in meditation, experiencing that pain, one of the things that they told us to do was, at some points when you find the pain, is just sit with it, to be aware of it, to observe the pain objectively, and not to react. And I truly understood the phrase of embracing the pain, because I did that. Even though it was so painful, I embraced it. And there was a moment that I experienced where the pain just slowly dissipated, became less and less and less. And it kind of moved towards the center of my back until it eventually it literally just disappeared. The pain was gone. It was insane. I've never experienced that in my life before. And I think in that moment, I truly grasped the understanding of the concept, not just theoretically or intellectually, but experientially. And the final concept of how I understood how this applies to our lives is, throughout our lives, when we react, when we behave to experiences in particular ways with aversion or with attachment that we needed so much, we can't deal with this thing that's happened in our lives, our loved one leaving us, divorcing us, my car getting stolen, and I need it. I feel like it's a part of me. The minute I can't let go of that, and I hold on to this attachment, this clinging, this craving. The moment I'm averse to this painful situation that causes emotional pain to my life, the moments I react, I cause a line in the sand. I kind of draw a line in the sand. And as long as I continue to behave in this scenario, as long as I continue to behave in this way, I continue to draw a line in the sand. And eventually that sand becomes rock, because it becomes hard, it becomes fixed. It becomes the way I always behave in these situations. It becomes the way I always behave in these scenarios. And these become my deeply entrenched negative behavioral patterns. The way I always behave in scenarios, the way I always believe that's the way I always am. That's just the way I behave. And as long as you believe that, you entrench and you cut these lines deeper and deeper into the rock. And the more you practice these meditation techniques, the more you develop this ability to slowly start dissolving these negative behavioral patterns. The more you start dissolving these patterns within our psyche, within our subconscious, and the more you start behaving with balance and with peace and with calm in scenarios and within situations that are the same, where you may have reacted in the past, you now choose to react with calm and balance. And in continuing to do this practice on a day-to-day basis, you can slowly dissolve it, almost filling in that deep line with sand until that behavioral pattern is completely dissolved. And then eventually, what's happening when a situation occurs in your life, a new situation, and you may react in a particular way, and you pick it up in that moment, it's like drawing a line in sand, in beach sand. And when the wave comes, and you choose not to react with it, the wave washes that line away. And you haven't entrenched that behavioral pattern in your day-to-day. You've chosen to remain balanced and at peace. And in doing so, you basically become a more peaceful and calming person, because you don't react to situations. You just be. You just are. I've gotten so excited and eager to just discuss as many of these concepts as possible. I've missed so many out as well. But I hope this gives you an idea of my experience, of what I learned, and how this practice can actually be very, very beneficial. And if you have any questions, post them down below in the comment section. If you'd like me to explore some new ideas that you're interested in, I'd love to do it. Thank you so much for listening. I will also add a link to my recent video of challenging yourself, because I mentioned it in this video. And if you want to know a little bit more about it and the idea of change and impermanence, please watch the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I look forward to next week's video. Till then, namaste.